You know that feeling right before you walk into your boss's office to ask for a raise? That sick stomach feeling, that voice in your head saying you're being greedy, that you should be grateful you even have a job? Yeah, I see you doing that thing where you've already apologized 3 times in your head before you've even said anything out loud. Here's what I noticed about you and literally every woman I know who's killing it at work. You're incredible at your job. You solve problems nobody else can solve. You make your company money, real money. But the second it's time to talk about what you're worth, you shrink. You start using words like, I was hoping, and would it be possible, and I'm so grateful. And the worst part? You already know you're underpaid. You've done the research, you've seen the market rates. You know other people in your role are making $15,000, $20,000 more than you, but knowing and saying it out loud are 2 completely different things. The thing is, this isn't a character flaw. This is what happens when you've been taught your whole life that asking for money is rude, that negotiating makes you difficult, that being a team player means accepting whatever they offer. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your boss isn't sitting in that office feeling guilty about underpaying you. She's sitting there with a budget that already includes a 10 to 15% raise buffer. She's expecting you to negotiate. She's literally waiting for you to ask. And if you don't, she's not going to volunteer it. She's going to assume you're fine with what you're making. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I negotiated a $20,000 raise using a completely different playbook. Not the desperate, please sir, may I have more approach. The strategic, psychological, we're partners in this approach that actually works in 2026. Hey sis, I'm Maya, your new big sis. I'm here to help you build real wealth and live the life you actually love. No legal jargon, no judgment. If you're ready to stop winging it with your money, hit subscribe and let's do this together. Penny and I are so happy you're here. Okay, so let me break down what's actually happening in a salary negotiation because most people get this completely wrong. When you walk in asking for a raise, you think you're having a conversation about your worth. You're not. You're having a conversation about risk and return. Your boss is thinking like an investor. She's asking herself 3 questions. 1, is this person going to stay or are they going to leave? 2, what's the cost of replacing them if they do leave? 3, what's the return on paying them more right now? Most women approach this conversation from an emotional place. They talk about their personal needs, their bills, their student loans, how hard they've worked. And employers don't care about any of that. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. They care about business impact. They care about what you've done that made the company money or saved the company money or prevented the company from losing money. So the first shift you need to make is this. Stop asking for a raise. Start presenting a business case. There's a massive psychological difference. When you ask for a raise, you're asking for a favor. When you present a business case, you're proposing an investment. Here's how you build that case. You document everything, and I mean everything. Every project you led, every problem you solved, every revenue you generated, every cost you reduced, every process you improved. You quantify it. Not, I did a good job on the marketing campaign. That's useless. I led the campaign that brought in $200,000 in new revenue with a cost per acquisition 30% lower than our historical average. That's a business case. You also need to understand the market. And I don't mean Glassdoor, I mean real market research. What are people in your exact role, with your exact experience, in your exact location, making right now? Not the low end, not the high end, the actual median. That's your anchor point. Now here's where the psychology comes in, and this is the part that actually changes the outcome. Most people go into a negotiation trying to be likable. They're worried about being seen as difficult or demanding, so they ask for less than their worth. They ask for what they think is reasonable. And here's the trap. Reasonable is always less than what you actually deserve because you're already discounting yourself before you even start. Instead, you need to anchor high, not crazy high, not delusional, but high enough that when they counter, they're still landing somewhere that's actually fair. This is basic negotiation psychology. The first number that gets said in a negotiation becomes the anchor for the entire conversation. If you say 15% raise, they're going to counter with 8%. If you say 25% raise, they're going to counter with 15%. Both of those conversations end in completely different places. But here's the thing that makes this work for women specifically. You can't just say a number and walk away. You have to frame it as a conversation. You have to make it feel collaborative, not confrontational. So instead of, I want a 25% raise, you say something like, based on my market research and the value I've brought to the company this year, I think we should be looking at a range of X to Y. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we make that work. Notice what just happened. You anchored high, you backed it up with data. You positioned yourself as someone who's done their homework and is thinking about this strategically. And you invited them into the conversation instead of demanding something from them. The second psychological shift is this. You need to make them feel like they're making the decision, not you. This is so important. Your boss wants to feel like she's in control. She wants to feel like she's the one deciding to give you a raise, not like you're forcing her hand. So you give her options. You make it easy for her to say yes. Instead of, I need a $20,000 raise, you say, I've been thinking about my compensation and I've done some research on market rates for my role. I'm seeing a range of X to Y. I think we should start with X, but I'm open to hearing what makes sense from your perspective. What's the process for us to make that adjustment? You're not demanding, you're not begging, you're problem solving together. And that changes everything. Now, the timing of this conversation matters. You don't do this randomly. You do this when you have leverage, after you've completed a major project, after you've gotten a promotion, after you've taken on new responsibilities, after you've brought in new business. You do this when the answer to what happens if we lose this person is genuinely scary for your boss. And here's the thing about 2026. The job market is weird right now. AI is changing what jobs look like. Companies are being more careful about hiring. That actually works in your favor. The cost of replacing you is higher than it's ever been. The cost of training someone new is astronomical. The risk of losing institutional knowledge is real. Your leverage is actually stronger than you think. So you walk in with that leverage. You walk in knowing that your boss has already budgeted for this. You walk in knowing that you're not asking for a favor. You're proposing a business investment, and you walk in with a script that makes it easy for her to say yes. Here's the exact script I used, and it worked. Hey, I wanted to talk about my compensation. I've really enjoyed working here, and I've been thinking about my growth and my market value. I did some research on what people in my role are making, and based on the projects I've led and the impact I've had this year, I think we should be looking at a salary of X. I know that might be higher than what we discussed when I started, but I think it reflects the value I'm bringing. What are your thoughts on that? That's it. You're not aggressive. You're not emotional. You're not begging. You're stating a fact. You're backing it up with research. You're inviting them into the conversation, and you're giving them space to respond. Now, what happens next is crucial. They're probably going to say something like, that's higher than we budgeted for, or let me talk to finance, or that's a big jump. And here's where most people cave. They immediately start justifying or apologizing. Don't do that. Instead, you say something like, I understand. I'm not asking you to make a decision today. I just wanted to put this on your radar so we can figure out how to make it work. What does the process look like from here? You're staying calm. You're staying collaborative. You're making it their problem to solve, not your problem to justify. And you're buying time. Because here's what happens in that time. They talk to finance. They realize they can make it work. They realize that losing you would be more expensive than paying you more. And suddenly, they come back with a number that's closer to what you asked for. The $20,000 raise I negotiated didn't happen in one conversation. It happened over 3 weeks. First conversation, I anchored high and made my case. Second conversation, they came back with a counter. I didn't accept it immediately. I said I needed to think about it. Third conversation, I came back, and we landed on a number that was actually really close to what I asked for originally. And here's the thing that made the difference. I never made it about me. I never said, I need this because my rent went up, or I deserve this because I work so hard. I made it about the business. I made it about value. I made it about investment and return. And I made it easy for my boss to say yes by framing it as a collaborative problem-solving conversation instead of a confrontation. The other thing that matters is what you do after you get the raise. Because this negotiation is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. You've just reset the baseline for your compensation. Now you need to deliver on the promise you made. You need to make sure that the value you said you were bringing actually materializes. Because if it doesn't, your boss is going to resent that raise. And that resentment is going to follow you for the rest of your time there. So in your first 90 days after the raise, you need to be crystal clear about what success looks like. You need to over-deliver on your promises. You need to make your boss feel like she made the right decision, and you need to start building the case for the next raise because this one is not going to be the last. Here's what I mean by that. You document everything again. You track your wins. You keep a running list of the value you're creating. You have regular check-ins with your boss where you're updating her on your progress. You're not doing this to brag. You're doing this to make sure that when it's time to talk about compensation again, the conversation is easy because you've already been having it the whole time. And the timing of the next conversation matters too. You don't wait 5 years. You don't wait until you're so underpaid that you're thinking about leaving. You have this conversation every 18 to 24 months because the job market changes. Your skills change, your value changes, and your compensation should reflect that. One more thing that's important, you need to get everything in writing, not in a weird, aggressive way, just in a professional way. After you've agreed on a number, send an email that says something like, "Thanks so much for the conversation today. Just to confirm, we've agreed on a salary of X effective on Y date. I'm excited to keep delivering great results for the team." You're not being paranoid, you're being professional, you're creating a paper trail, and you're making sure that there's no confusion about what was agreed to. And if they come back with a written offer that's different from what you discussed, you push back. You say, "I want to make sure we're on the same page. In our conversation, we agreed on X. This offer says Y. Can we clarify?" Don't sign anything that doesn't match what you agreed to. This is not being difficult. This is being smart. It's no use just listening to me. Your task for today is this. I want you to do the research. Find out what people in your exact role with your exact experience in your location are actually making right now, not on Glassdoor. Call people, ask around, find the real number, document it. And then I want you to calculate the value you've brought to your company in the last year. What revenue did you generate? What costs did you save? What problems did you solve? Get specific, get numbers. Do it and tell me in the comments what you found out, because once you have that information, you're ready for the next step. Before you go, if this felt like the conversation you needed today, subscribe so we can keep hanging out. And if you have a friend who's underpaid and doesn't know how to ask for more, share this with her. Let's help all our girls get paid what they're actually worth. You got this. Take care of your money, sis. I'll see you soon.